My name is Colleen, and this is my kitchen. Believe it or not, this was me 4 years ago. I struggled with my weight my entire life. And finally, I came to the realization that diets don't work. By simply eating healthy and moving more, I was able to lose over 100 pounds. I started at a size 26W, and within about a year and a half, I went to a size 12, no W. And best of all, I've now kept the weight off for over 2 years, and counting. So now here I am in my kitchen showing you how you can eat healthy and lose weight just like I have. Because if I can do it, you can too. Tonight we are making a summer vegetable tart featuring all kinds of vegetables from my garden: squash, zucchini, all kinds of really good stuff, tomato, eggplant. And you'll see from the picture that this recipe, it is a work of art. It is absolutely stunningly beautiful once it's finished. And I'm going to show you how easy it is to put this together. It is a little bit time consuming, so make this a really nice weekend meal for somebody special. And let's get started, and I'll show you how easy it is to assemble. So we want to start with our crust, and I'm going to be putting a lot of flavor into the crust. We also want to, of course, make it healthy. And so first of all, highly recommend you use a food processor for this because it makes it really super easy. And the first thing you want is 3 ounces of whole wheat pastry flour. To that, we're going to add 3 ounces of all-purpose unbleached flour, and then a teaspoon of baking powder, just like that. Let's add a pinch of coarse sea salt, about 2 tablespoons fresh oregano leaves. Then I have 2 cloves of garlic, and I'm going to press these in just to help my food processor do its job. Once I have that together, I'm just going to go ahead and give it a quick pulse and let that mix up in there. Okay, now to that, I have 1/3 cup of water and 3 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm going to add the olive oil to that water just like that. Let's give it a bit of a whisk here. Get it nicely blended. And then what I'm going to do is put this on low and slowly drizzle it in. Once it starts getting crumbly, it's time to take it out and roll it out. Go ahead and turn that dough out. You want to make sure to use a little bit of flour, not too much, just enough to keep it from sticking. And I am using a 10-inch tart pan, and it has about an inch lip around it. So I want to roll the dough to about 12 inches even for my tart pan. Now I recommend you could do this in a pie pan if you wanted to. I recommend a tart pan because it has this nice removable bottom, so it makes it really great for presentation. Once we have that rolled out, I'm just going to take this and we're going to gently put it into our tart pan here. And what I like to do is press it into the excluded edges, just like that. And then just take my knife and run it right across the top there to take off all the extra dough. Now I'm just going to prick the bottom of it with a fork, poke some holes, and the reason for doing that is so that I don't get any bubbles. I want it to stay flat while it's baking because I'm going to do a pre-bake on it. I've got my oven at 375. I'm going to bake this for about 6 minutes just so that the crust sets up. While that crust is doing its pre-bake, let's go outside and get some vegetables out of the garden. Look at these beautiful heirloom tomatoes, purple Cherokees. These will go great in our tart. And here's a nice yellow squash. That'll be absolutely perfect. And there's a zucchini hiding down here. Oh, this is going to be perfect for our tart. The crust is done. I've set it aside to cool, so let's start on that filling now. I have one large sweet onion here that I'm just going to slice in halves. I'm going to slice in fairly thin rings here. We want it to get nice and caramelized up. It's going to be gooey on the bottom of this tart. Let's add a pinch of coarse sea salt to that to help those onions sweat up, and then give them a nice stir. While those onions cook up, let's go ahead and prepare the rest of our veggies. And for my squash and my zucchini, I really love to use this mandolin. I'm going to go ahead and put it on a thin slice, just like that. And I take the zucchini and just run it down. Let's do the same thing for that yellow squash. Gorgeous slices here. Go ahead and set those aside. I have here an eggplant that I bought at the farmer's market, and it's a little softer than a zucchini or squash, so it doesn't do too well on the mandolin slicer. So this one I'm just going to slice manually, just like that. Try to get them in even slices. These are probably around, about 1/8 of an inch thick. And last but not least, those gorgeous purple Cherokee tomatoes. These are heirloom, and they're very juicy and absolutely delicious. So these, same thing, they don't slice well on the mandolin. I'm just going to cut them up manually. I went ahead and took the core out and just slice them again into about 1/8 of an inch thickness. Our onions are just about ready. So last step, we want some cheesy goodness in this tart, but not too much because we want to watch those fat calories, right? So I have 1/2 cup of low-fat, 2% cottage cheese, and then I have 1 ounce, which is about 1/4 cup of shredded mozzarella, light. You want to use the skim mozzarella. And then 1 ounce, about 1/4 cup of shredded Parmesan cheese. Those onions are nice and gooey. Look, they're sticking to the bottom of that pan. So now what I'm going to do is take 1/4 cup of red wine. You want to use a dry red wine. I'm using a Pinot Noir. Throw that in there and just use my spoon to scrape up all those nice crusty bits on the bottom of the pan. So step 1 on the tart, you want to take the cheese mixture that we put together, go ahead and spoon it into the very bottom and just kind of spread it around. Then let's get all those nice onions, they're still warm. So this is going to be the base of our tart. This is going to be underneath that pretty, almost floral-like design that you see on the top. Okay, so now for the main attraction, and that is assembling all of our vegetables. So we're going to do rings, one after the other, of each of these vegetables. And the best way that I find to seed these is to go ahead and cut those circles in half. So you have these half moons here. And I'm just going to start with a row of this yellow squash on the outside. I have my first row in. Now let's do the second row. I'm going to go ahead and do zucchini here, and same thing. I do a row standing them up on their ends. I do like to kind of layer these so they're not directly overlapping the squash behind them. Next up, let's get that eggplant in. Same thing, cut them in half. Like that, and do another round with them. Now the tomatoes, again, cut them in half, arrange them in the circle. Okay, so now we have our first 4 vegetables. You can see 4 rings laid here. So now what I do is I just come back to the beginning, starting with the yellow squash again. Now as I get closer to the center, my space is filling up quite a bit here. So what I'm going to do is just kind of take the last bits and arrange them in here like petals of a flower opening. There. How pretty is that? Absolutely gorgeous. Now that I have this done and arranged, I'm going to go ahead and pop it in my oven. The oven is still heated to 375 and bake it for 30 minutes. Our tart has baked up and I've let it sit for about 5-10 minutes to let the juices really kind of settle and firm up in there. Look how absolutely beautiful that is. I almost don't want to cut into it, but I know it's absolutely delicious too. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a wedge of this. This recipe is going to serve 4 people. And look at that. How beautiful is that? Let's take a nice taste of this, all that cheesy goodness and those caramelized onions and red wine at the bottom. Absolutely delicious. Give this a try. I'm going to go sit down and enjoy my meal. I will see you next time in my kitchen.